There is something that I want to mention about skewness with box and whiskers, and then something with Excel. If we talk about skewness, okay, we're going to either talk about skewed right, skewed left, okay, and we'll eventually talk about that as like positively skewed or negatively skewed. Okay, positive means skewed right, negative means skewed left, or symmetric. Okay. If we're looking at a box and whisker, they might ask this at some point, okay? If we think about, how is this distributed, okay? What would your argument be? What do you think that you would say that this picture here is in regards to skew? Is it skewed left, skewed right, or symmetric? That's going to be symmetric. And this is the idea, is remember that box is talking about your interquartile range. So that's the middle 50%. And this is our median. Okay, and what happens is that if we were to convert the data here, took the raw data, convert it into a histogram, most of your data is going to be kind of clustered like this. And because these whiskers are about the same in length, your data is going to look like something like that. And that looks like it's symmetric, correct? Okay, now if I come over here to this one, what do you think this would be? Skewed left or skewed right? Or symmetric? It's going to be skewed right. So here's the idea is that your median is here, okay, and you've got data that's over to the left of it, but you don't have a lot of data. Does that make sense? In comparison to what you have here, you have more data over here, okay, all the way down through here. And now you can see that kind of that peak or that hump right there is to the left, and then the tail is over to the right. So that would be skewed right to where the tail is, right? And then the same thing happens here, but in the opposite direction. So most of your data, your median's there, most of your data is over here to the left, and it would look something like that if we were to put it into a curve. Okay, so that's skewed left. Is that okay with everybody? Generally speaking, you don't always need to look at the whiskers. Okay, the box is usually good enough to tell you the location basically of Q2 in regards to the sizes of the boxes, whether it's left, right, or symmetric. Okay, so that was one thing. Another thing, and I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to this when I was writing this. I don't know why, or when I made this first initial video, but it has to do with the function that Excel uses for determine a quartile. Let's say that I'm looking at, I've got a list here of 50 terms, okay? And if I want to find Q2, okay, which is the median, I think the best thing to do there is say median, and then I'm going to type in my list, or I'll highlight my list, or however you plan on doing that, okay? So I've got, actually I think I got 42 pieces of data, okay? And it'll give me my median, okay? Which makes sense if we come down here. So if I have 42 pieces of data, if I do the n plus 1 formula to determine the location, n plus 1 divided by 2 to determine my location of the median, n plus 1 divided by 2, so 42, so it'd be 43 divided by 2, 43 divided by 2 would be 21.5, right? So 21.5 is going to be between these two right there, correct? So then the average would be 41. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's going to be Q2. Now here's the issue that arises, and that's not a problem using the median function. But if I want to figure out what is, this thing's not working the way I want it to. If we're going to try to figure out what Q1 is, okay, and I type in equals, and I use the quartile function, which I was able to use in my video because what happened is I had an odd number of data points, and there's not an issue when that happens. It's when this is even that this happens. This has, and I'll explain what Excel is doing here. But if I say quartile of my array A1 through A42, and then I put the comma 1, so that's the first quartile, it gives me that number right there. Okay? But what we've talked about is that the Q1 should be the median of the first half of data, right? Would you guys argue that that's the first half of data right there? Okay? So the middle point here would actually be, if I just say I'm looking for the median of that list, so I'll type it in that way. I'll hit equals median of A1 through A21. It doesn't give me the same 26.25. Now, they're going to be in the ballpark of one another, okay? This is the one that we have kind of focused on, and that's the idea. If I've got that half of a list and I, cancel out the 5 with the 40 and then the 7 with the 34 and dwindle down to find that middle value in this case is going to be the average of those two, right? Does that make sense? Got 9 values above it, 9 values below them, so the average of those is going to give me 26. What Excel is using when it's designed to be a quartile is basically it's using a process called interpolation, which is using like linear regression to determine what the percentile is of each piece of data. It's kind of confusing. If we have more time, maybe Friday, I'll explain a little bit more detail about what they're doing there. But my suggestion is don't use the quartile function, use the median function, okay? So if I've got the median of the first half, and that's a good thing about knowing, what is Q1? It's the median of the first half. So I can type in median and then A1 through A21, okay? If I want the Q3, then that's median of the second half. So it'd be the median of those values. Does that make sense? Okay, and you would just say equals median A22 through A42. That's one route, okay? Now what I'm about to show you can take place of Excel for those things, okay? But this will not take place of Excel for the year. So first period, I showed this to him and say, so I can do that and not use Excel. Well, yes, for this, but your knowledge of using Excel and your experience with it is not going to disappear. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to have to require you. It's just any stats class is going to use Excel. Okay, but if you hit this plus sign right here in Desmos, you got to be in the graphing application. But hit the plus sign, and you come down here. It says table, and you can type in a list. Okay, and it doesn't matter what side you're in. I don't believe. I just always stay in X1. So I type my list in, whatever my values are. The only thing that stinks about this is it doesn't sort it. So on your test tomorrow, you got 42 numbers to sort. I don't know if you want to put those in order by hand. Okay, that's a pain in the butt. So Excel kind of champions over Desmos by having that feature. But if I type in my list here, and I go to my keyboard, come over to where it says functions, click the stats option, you have all these options in here. You do median, min, max, mean, length, a lot of stuff that we'll talk about later, okay? But one of them is stats, okay? Just kind of give you a demonstration with that. And you can actually type those words in too. If I type in stats and I put parentheses, and now I identify what was the list. It was X sub 1. So I hit X and then shift underscore, put a 1 in, and you see that it automatically then generates my 5 number summary. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, might be useful. Okay, you can do standard deviation. Okay, now the only thing that's different here is if you look at the standard deviation, one is standard deviation, the other one is standard deviation P. So what do you think this one here without the P on it represents? Yes, that's sort of sample. Okay. But there's a lot of stuff in here that is useful to us. We'll do a lot of this stuff later on in Excel, and we'll do it inside Desmos here. Okay. Some other stuff here if you want to mess around with that. But is everybody okay with that? Okay, so those are options for you. Okay. questions on anything? We're good?